Now, Mitt Romney says he's dropped out of the presidential race, so now everybody's going to write articles about who the frontrunner is. And Washington Post has decided that it is Jeb Bush. Fascinating decision. So here's a line from the article. They say Mitt Romney's decision to forego a third try at the White House has settled the question of whether the 2016 GOP presidential field has a frontrunner, bestowing a coveted status on former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. No, but wait a minute. Who bestowed that status on him? You did. This is how the media works, right? Was there a poll where Jeb Bush came in number one? No. There was a poll where Jeb Bush came in fifth. He got 8% of the voters. That's a recent poll, okay? Just happened. You know who's above him? Ben Carson. He's some random weird doctor dude running around the country yelling things into a camera, usually one owned by Fox News. So Dr. Ben Carson is ahead of Jeb Bush. How do you decide he's the front runner? Okay, well, maybe it's because he scores so well in favorability. Well, let's check that out. Jeb Bush's favorability is 46%. His unfavorability is 43%. Oops, that's pretty shitty. Okay, there's no other way to describe that. Those are not good numbers. They could be worse. They could be like his brother's numbers, George W. Bush, leaving office in the 20s, right? But that's not what I would call the front runner, right? No, but the Washington Post has decided he is the front runner. Why? Is it because they're irrational? No, actually, that's not true. Is it because they like Jeb Bush? Well, I don't know that part, and I wouldn't make any assumptions along those lines. It's because they are somewhat logically looking at what determines elections. Now, they don't spell it out in that way, but everything they write, as I'm about to read you, is abundantly clear. So what did they look at to determine that he was the front runner? Bush was already assembling, they explain, a formidable army of fundraisers, and talented operatives, including poaching Romney's top Iowa strategist, David Kokel, to be his national campaign manager. So if you get the right advisors, well, then who cares who the candidate is? Those advisors will shape the candidate into what they need to be. But much more importantly, are the donors behind you? Because if the donors are behind you, well, then you're the front runner. It doesn't matter if you're finishing fifth or sixth or who's ahead of you. That money's going to pour in and help you anyway. And they might be right about that. Remember, 19 out of 20 times, the guy with more money wins in congressional races. 95% of the time, doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative, the guy with more money in the race wins the election, okay? Now, in presidential politics, it's slightly different than that, as Sheldon Adelson found out the hard way, because there's so much free media. So I think this analysis is wrong, but it does go to a frame of mind, okay? So the frame of mind. They went and talked to Brian Ballard. He's a lobbyist and Romney supporter. He explains that when Romney dropped out, quote, it's a great day for Jeb Bush. I think Jeb had 75% of the money folks here. This brings in the other 25%. So, good night, Irene. I mean, Dr. Ben Carson, good luck to you, brother. You know, the Rand Pauls with your libertarian stuff. You don't want any wars. How are you going to get money from defense contractors and the lobbyists that spend so much money? Silly Rand Paul, you're not going to get their money. This race is already over. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so more quotes here. Again, Brian Ballard here. Now, Bush is, they are actually talking to, at this point, to a Chicago private equity executive. So this is one of the richer donors. They say, now Bush is the only one my wife and I will work for. If it's not Jeb, we're done for in this cycle. I know in my heart that Jeb is the only one who passes the presidential test. We'll be all in for him. So again, the Washington Post is not making this up. They're going to talk to donors who are the most important players. And the donors are saying, you think you're going to have a primary almost a year from now? You're going to have caucuses in Iowa? You're not going to have any of that. We're going to decide. We're the first primary. We decide who gets all the money. Then they have the infrastructure, they can hire all the people, they can open up more offices, they can go door to door, they can do all the advertising, they get all that money, and we decide, and then you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Here's another donor. This is a Romney fundraiser in Virginia. Now, first they talked about how, hey, it's not just Jeb Bush. Remember, Chris Christie will service the establishment and the rich just as well as anybody, okay? Don't buy into that stuff about Chris Christie being a populist. Oof, Wall Street loves Chris Christie. The only reason why they're not pouring all their money into him is because of all the scandals he's had. But they say here, we shouldn't assume that the only people competing for the center-right pie will be Jeb and Chris. I don't think any of the prospective candidates will be shy about going after these donors. It's a race between everyone. So well before they go for your votes, the race is already on, the real race for the money. Because our system is so incredibly corrupt that the people who rush to please these donors first are the ones who are going to win the real primary, the money primary. You've got to fix the system. If you don't fix it, we're all in a lot of trouble, man. This is how things get decided. wolf-pack.com. Okay, change their presumptions entirely. Can you imagine if we had representatives that represented us? That's what we're going to get. wolf-pack.com. Come join us, make it a reality.